everybody. Today is our vice president debate. As you can see here, we have both of our candidates, and if they could both introduce themselves, that would be lovely.
You want to go in order? You can go first.
We're going by alphabetical and first name, so sorry.
Okay. My name is Ambrose. I am going into my sophomore year at ODU. I am currently the electric area manager here at the MLab. I have also had some positions at MMO already, that being event chair and currently historian as a founding officer.
Hello, I'm Marcus Ballant. I've not had any positions in the MLab or the MMO board, but I have been a pretty well-known and recognized regular for advocation of general safety knowledge, adding people into the maker space and the MMO, trying to get people in here, along with progressing rules and pushing for more fleshed out rules that have less loopholes or ways to be exploited.
Here's for your first question. Say that there's like a verbal conflict going on, just a simple argument happening inside inside MMO or whatever, right? And you guys are there. What would you guys do to try and stop that or prevent further complications from happening? Ambrose, could you start us off on this question?
Yeah, sure. I think the first thing that I would do is probably get the two people separated, because a lot of times when events escalate like that, it's just going to keep escalating even if you try to diffuse it with the two people in the room. If it's getting to a point where it seems like something serious might break out, it is best to just separate and take some time to talk to people individually.
How I would go in events like this is usually I would listen and try and figure out what's actually causing the problem in the scenario, whether it would be like if somebody was being like hogging machinery or somebody was being aggressive towards it, and I would use that as a kind of establish a baseline of how we could dissolve and handle the situation. Because my way is I don't really like to separate people like that, because it wouldn't really solve anything. It would still keep those people mad, and then you would intentionally cause yourself to be the mediator. So instead of separating, I would be more of the kind to kind of keep them together, but make sure it stays civil and they both work their problems out together. Obviously, there's a limitation. If it's getting violent or something, they will have to be separated, but that's for really rare scenarios.
As your role as vice president, you might have to email big companies, teachers, faculty, and other people that we reach out to. How would you format your email to said people? Marcus, could you go first for this question?
I am an incredibly list-based email person, because I have noticed in the past, whether I'm talking to teachers, students, even not in emails and just through regular text messages, a lot of people seem to get confused or at least miss certain topics when you just plot everything into a large blot. So generally how I like to type emails is I like to keep them in maybe small 2 to 3 sentence bites. So as my topic jumps and moves around, it will be separated by a visual break. And usually that helps a lot when it comes to them answering all the questions and getting all the information that they need to. Because I've had plenty of times I send a single block of like 7 to 10 sentences and half the questions aren't answered. And they are even asking things that are answered in that email.
So, during our meetings, we have a whole lot of talk, a lot of brainstorming going on, a lot of people talking here, there, a lot of brainstorming even, right? So, since it is your role as vice president to take notes during these meetings, how will you format these pages and take these notes during said? Ambrose, could you start us off on this question?
So usually how I do it, as someone with my experience as event chair, and obviously just being a student in general, you have to send a lot of emails to professors or whoever else that you're communicating with. So what I usually do and what I have learned in the past in classes I've taken is you're supposed to address them, kind of give them a greeting, and then talk about what you need to talk about. Try to make it as concise as possible, like concise and specific as possible. And then you should end it with a little summary of just like, okay, this is all we talked about. And then here's the TDLR of like, this is what I need you to do with what I just told you. And I have never had any problems with that working in the past. That's sure. So, as someone who's had a vice president position before, what I would usually do is you have the date, of course, first. I think that we actually have a template for this, but you have the date and whatever the topic of the meeting is, and you're supposed to go through and mainly address like anything that was voted on, and obviously just in chronological order. Anything that's voted on or anything that we decide to motion, any motions have to be documented. Also, just for readability purposes, I would probably add like some bolding and obviously stylized for the effect of being more readable to the reader, and then obviously have the end meeting end at the bottom.
So, how I would like to do notes or any way of if we were in some sort of community or group project, I really liked the idea how Jacob did it, the current and vice president, where they had kind of, the live notes, but how I would want to change it is I would like to have it to where anybody could do that. So there are softwares out there where I think Google has one. It's like what Google Whiteboard or something, but everyone can write their ideas into it at the same time. And once we are all done, I guess, sketching down our brainstorm, then we can work on consolidating, boiling down information. And then from that point on, we could put that into our formal notes document and even use any sketches or anything drawn on the notes to screenshot and put within it to give visual context of what's going on as well.
Here's another question for you guys. Say that the budget's down and we're all like running out of money inside the MMO. What kind of event would you plan as like a fundraiser to gain more money for the MLab to like get more materials or whatever?
I would say that would be very complicated question. I think it would definitely be dependent on the actual time period we are in the semester, because obviously a lot of people, like in the early semester, might want something that's more like not educational, but more provocative and having a schedule or creating something while closer to the end of the semester. People want stress relief. So having means to do that or events to create while those are going on, we need to play off the aspect of how the general crowd of the campus is feeling. Because I know me and my friend, we were going through an event in front of the library, and it was during finals week, and it was like a pumpkin destruction, but it wasn't very popular. The only reason why we did it is because he had friends in it that peer pressured him to do it. And although it was a great point during finals week to have something destructive like that, they also made their price way too expensive. So it warded off a lot of students because like the fruit itself were probably only maybe $1 to $2 a piece, but they were wanting $6 to $7 for somebody to smash a pumpkin. So at the same time as us needing to find a activity during that time period where the most people would want and feel the pull and urge to do so, we need to also find a balance and price point where the most people will want to do that.
So we actually I did this a bit with Drew as event chair of like planning these type of fundraising events. And the biggest thing I would recommend is actually planning it as a group. I would probably want to have a meeting with the treasurer and probably like student outreach, because those should be two people who are very well aware of what we how we could get the student body involved and engaged, because the biggest thing that we would need for something like that is to get attendance. If we got attendance, that would obviously help with fundraising a lot. And also working with the treasurer to kind of see, okay, what is the price that we could make for this to be the most effective, and what would be something that the student body is interested in.
Seth, do you have any questions for these candidates right now, or any like ideas that you want to share potentially right now? So, is there any questions that you guys have for each other right now about like what you do, and questions about the past that you may have about the questions I have asked for like each other as other vice president candidates? Just out of curiosity, you might have for each other.
I would say no for now.
A question I could have is how like would your how would you try to gain a better grasp on a lot of administrative um experiences that you may lack right now?
Um, it would honestly be something that's sort of like a trial by fire. It would, like, obviously, if I would get into the vice president position, I would immediately gain the access and resources through other people who have A, worked in that position before, or B, have ties to those people. And they're like, hey, we need you to figure out how to do this, figure out how to do that. Here's the connections to people that we know. Obviously, from the point that I am right now, I couldn't just know the exact person that I need to email because this is a position that I've never been in before. But it's similar to really any job process at the same time. You like, unless you're going into a field with that experience, you're going to have to learn from somewhere.
Definitely.
So, say that we're trying to work on a project, like one of the end of semester projects where we try and give out to the community that does have a deadline. And say that one of the pieces of technology breaks, say like a woodworking machine or something like that. But the machine that part that we need can only come in a few days after the deadline. How would you go about telling the community that we can't really get the machine fixed until after the
Or
deadline?
even so I think the biggest thing that I would want to do is be transparent about it. That is something I am very, very keen on, and I have already kind of worked on in my positions as an officer. Specifically, when we were writing the Constitution, I was a really big advocate and proposed that we would have all MMO members be able to attend all non-confidential officer meetings. And I really want there to be very clear transparency for officers to members because I think that could help a lot in regards of even spreading that information in the first place. So if we are like giving a very clear, this is what happened and this is what led to that happening, this is how we're going to fix it, and this is the kind of proposed new plan of how we're going to do that. I think if you just throw something out there in the announcements of like, hey, we don't know how this is a problem and we don't know how we're going to fix it, that will definitely lead to causing some panic. And if we are like, okay, this is a problem that we have, this is our solution, that can help a lot.
I would say in the scenario, if we had a machine or equipment break, really, in my way, the best way to at least announce it to people is to just immediately tell them out the gate because we don't know. It's not necessarily a for the deadline thing, but it's a for the people thing because some of the people don't live on campus, so some of them have true time commitments to come to the MLab. So if we are being vague or we don't tell them when something happens, they might spend time and resources to get to the school when they could have used it in elsewhere if they knew that that machine was broken. And in regards to if we had a specific deadline and the machine was broken and we couldn't reach that deadline before the machine was fixed, it's really a toss up. If it's something like we were trying to use a certain printer and it broke, and now like we have a printer that's not big enough, like obviously you just have to kind of work into your creativity of how could we solve this problem. But if it was like a wood machine thing that broke, we'd be more restricted in how we can solve it. And the kind of tragic thing with it that you kind of just have to deal with is if something is just broken and you're truly stuck, you just kind of have to bite the bullet and wait for it. Because that's happened to me at work plenty of times where we've had a job and we're like ready to go for it, but shipping or the freight just got back ordered and we just been stuck. And the only way to kind of solve that is by focusing your time on something else that you would have done afterwards, or weren't even thinking about it beforehand. And once you finish with that, now you're available to come back and finish the thing that you needed to in the first place.
Can I just say something really quick? So, it's actually not our responsibility as a club to tell people when a machine is down. That is the MLab official server and the Canvas's job to tell people when machines are down. So it's not really on us to tell anyone that machines are down because they should already be communicated that by the actual employees. And I guess that's really it.
Um, I just have to say the both of us are so good at answering problems. We just
Yeah, we are
we just
really good,
destroy those.
and we did. And I also want to say for Seth, our one audience member, and whoever watches in the future, that I am very grateful to have Marcus as a opposition because he's a very good candidate as well.
Why thank you, small one from down there.
Yeah. A little thing I do, I am also a member of Asterisk, which is the trans advisory board on campus here at ODU. And obviously, the biggest thing for that is it's a student board that's supposed to advocate for underrepresented groups. And a lot of skills that you really need for that is experience in listening to the student body. And within that, it's a very useful tool. And I would like to say humbly that I am very willing to listen to feedback from students, whether or not you're an officer, or even maybe even a member. Um, so I really want to advocate for our members' voices, and like I said earlier, I am pushing with that by wanting more transparency between us as officers and our members. And I would also like to try implementing Robert's rule. If you've ever been to a meeting with me, I talk about this often because we don't use it. And it's a very good meeting communication tool that can help us have meetings that run a lot quicker and without a lot of headaches. And we also created that historian position for in the Constitution, which I currently hold right now. And to just be able to document those issues we have, especially within like the design challenge we had, like the question you mentioned earlier with the 3D printing usage. We had so many people coming in for their like whether they had like final exams and they needed to make this certain component with our 3D printers. All of them were used all the time and it went really poorly. And I think if we document that and have meetings, okay, how can we brainstorm ideas of how we can fix this? And continue documenting that and work on how we can fix it. And something that I think Marcus mentioned that is really important is to get involvement from our very skilled members, such as Marcus. He's a very skilled member of our club, and figure out what we can do with our officers, such as event chair and our outreach officers. Even asking our members, what do you want to see us do as events? What would you go to and enjoy to get more people like Marcus in our space? I think that would be really amazing. I think that's my yap sesh over.
So, I would say the goals that I have in mind for the MMO are more of a grand scheme thing. So, we kind of have to think of the MMO as like a filtered filter. So, obviously, our goal a little bit is we want to make sure we want to get people to join the MMO. We want it to get to expand, to have more people. This isn't an ego moment. Ambrose just said it. More people like me into this club. And the only way we can do that is by getting our voices and our words out into the ODU, just anywhere, dining hall, Instagram pages, teachers, staff, classrooms. And the only way we can get people into the MMO itself is by getting people into the MLab. So, as much as it's we need to expand ourself to get more people, gain more traction, we also need to get people into the MLab too, because they're kind of like our bottom pillar of the pyramid where sort of as we go higher and higher into like clubs and everything, there's less and less people to choose from because they're already in a segmented group that's segmenting even more to a smaller group. So kind of my main focus would be to expand and get more people into the MLab and using the machines, which would also in turn give the MLab more budget because the school can see we're really growing, we're having more people. That would allow to have more platforms, and then that would cause the MMO to get more people because they're finding more people that are proactive in campus who would also want things to move and benefit more, like consistent rules that don't really have loopholes, and brought up like the printer thing at the end of the semester. I know Ambrose and I had a debate before we even knew we were going to be vice presidents. We had a debate talking about the printers because every single printer was reserved and being used for these giant square brick things for this random class, but half the people weren't showing up and all their time tickets were already, hour, 2 hours into it. And we had to go to the staff members that had access to remove the jobs from these printers. But I find it was something that was really annoying because the printer gets reserved like by their name even if they're not using it. So like one of the ways that I think that could be improved along with the expansion of everything, and this could go on with all the machines, if the machine goes unclaimed for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like we should work to get these rules into Fabman to wipe their like just the reservation, because clearly they are a no-show and all it does is hog people because we're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for them to show up, and then an hour and a half of waiting goes by and they're never there, and then we're like, okay, finally we can clear this when they could have been cleared an hour ago. So along with my main goal of wanting to get more people aware about the MLab, which would cause more people to funnel into the MMO, we need to make systems more efficient, and I would say more automated, but not in the weird fully automated everything. Like we still need people to interact and grow, because if we didn't have people interacting with this stuff, there wouldn't even be a need for any of this because there's no community built around it. It's just walk into a room, print a machine, leave, and come back.
I think like something to add on top of that, we definitely need to look into that as the MLab, like as managers and as a board. We need to look into that, and that's a very good criticism that I definitely agree with. Okay, bye, Seth.
Toodly doodly.
Thank you, Seth, for joining us.
And I think on top of that, going back to what I said earlier with if we have these event issues documented and being like, okay, we clearly are having a conflict of interest on top of what you just said. We also need to make sure that we're booking a long time in advance, or maybe even having more times available, like a specific for these events where we can have people come in and print these things outside of hours. It could be a thing of like maybe someone who's off campus but has made a really great design. They need someone to print this for them. Someone could come in and print that during a designated time that we have, and outside of our open hours, and really make some progress on what we want to do without getting in the way of just normal like day-to-day MLab users.
I also think another thing that should be done with the MMO is I think it's going to sound contradictory to what I just said about getting the MLab to grow, which would make the MMO to grow, but it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because as we get more people in the MLab and we get more people in the MMO, these difference between the two are going to shrink. Because really at the moment, the way I see it, the MMO is just like MLab plus. So possibly if we were working on expanding and if we possibly get more budget for next semesters or like ones afterwards, I think we should also focus on separating them to make it more intriguing to want to join this. Because as far as like at this moment, the MMO is just hey, we're the MLab, but we show up more often. And I would like for that to be something different, and we could be more of like role models, or not really trying to think of the word, but separating ourselves from the MLab. It could be from activities or any specific like extra access to the machining in rooms, like how we had during the design challenge, how every other Monday we had an extra time. Something to deviate ourselves from just the MLab would help a lot in wanting people to join as well, because at the moment it is just MLab plus.
I think something that is very poorly communicated, which is our responsibility as officers, is that the biggest difference that the club was founded is for there to be that distinction, right? So that's actually why we added those Maker Mondays. And by the way, we are continuing those. Those are not just for the design challenge. That will be through the entire rest of the year. And our big kind of thing is that we are the community of the MLab. The MLab is are the people who are employed there, who go there and or like even members or like users of the MLab, they go there and they print things, but it might just be for a class. And actually, every single event that we hold, including like workshops, every single event that any of you went to, those are all MMO. And I don't know if those are distinct enough. Um, I guess maybe not if you and probably a lot of other people don't really see that, and that is something that we should work on. That all of our events are the MMO and not the MLab.
I would want to add to that, like with the events thing, like popcorn, the movie nights and game nights, those were a fun thing, but to somebody who wasn't in the club, they couldn't tell that that was an exclusive thing that wasn't just for MLab people, because we were hosting it in the MLab. So, like, if somebody, obviously, we would still let them come in here, but when they would go to that event, they would just assume it was the MLab, or like if the ring won. I thought that was an absolutely amazing thing, because that was something that used our club not as leverage, but as like a badge to kind of gain us entry into an activity that we would not otherwise have the ability to do. Because
Mm.
if you actually went to the event, the teacher was like, was she actually was like, yeah, since all of you all were part of the MMO and you already work with machinery, I'll give you a pass in all the prerequisites, and you can just join. And that's exactly what I did. I'm taking that class this semester, and that wouldn't have been for the MMO and its separation from like general populace and the MLab, to show that we are like the extra people who like know more, care more, want to do more in the club. So having more, I guess, specialized events like that would also help a lot in wanting to get people to join.
Yeah, I think something that we really want to push this year is having workshops every month. Um, we want to have at least one workshop every single month, and something that I think would be a great idea to implement is we could have multi step workshops. For instance, we have like some ideas I just came up off the top of my head. Maybe we have some people make like a game controller. That would mean would have to use electronic components. Um, and we'd have to code it and all of that things. It could be customized, and obviously you would have to use 3D printers to make all of the parts. um and or like minifigures, because we have a D&D one shot coming up this semester, which will be pretty cool. So we could make some minifigures for that. We could implement a lot of different aspects of what we can make to continue that. I think that should be a big focus of us, and maybe keeping it more exclusive, like you said. But I also think it's very important that we have those events that can get people in the door like that, because we were able to get a lot of people who may not have ever considered to show up to something at the MLab, because like, ooh, we have free food, we have movies, we have things that you can do outside of this big scary like, oh, I have to come in here and learn how to do things, but you don't know how to do things. And I think it's a really great step into our space.
I never said that we needed to remove those. I just said we needed to have more that stood out from the crowd. Like maybe those could be pushed as MLab events and there could be MMO people there to kind of say that like, hey, we are the MMO. We work within the MLab and we're kind of the community that is consistent and revolve around it and we have specialized events where only MMO people are allowed. Like I know I did kind of talk, I guess, down or negative about it, but they are important because they do very rarely push people from like that weren't in the MLab into it because they saw the event. But I never said they were like should be exclusive. I just said we needed to have more events that were exclusive to the MMO to give that difference to want people to join.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think we should also something we could do as well is we need to be better about introducing ourselves as a club before the event actually starts. But then the issue with that as well is there are going to be people who show up like 20 minutes late, and then they just won't know that. And I will say though that all of our posters are um, marketed as MMO and not MLab, which is something that like it can be hard, I guess, to see that difference sometimes. But I definitely agree with you that we need to have more events like outside of like more maker member specific events for sure.
Nice debate from both of you. Thank you for taking turns not speaking over each other a lot better than some certain debates I've seen in a higher up sense. But
What are you talking about?
Elaborate.
no, thank you very much for everyone showing up. Thank you for taking time. And it seems we have answered all the questions that I've had. And thank you very much.